I imagine that you have seen situations where the parents of these teens are almost as troubled as they are. The parents are going through their own stuff, and it's the grandparents who actually are taking more responsibility, raising that generation more. I believe I saw something that you wrote.
Yeah.
There's millions of kids now that are that the grandparents have responsibility for in some way. I'm Dr. Carol, and thank you for joining me today. But Dr. Carol is not the title that I feel most strongly about. The name that I treasure the most is being Grandma Carol. Grandma Carol to my 4 wonderful grandchildren. Now, in my case, they're step-grandchildren, but I'm grandma to them. I'm welcomed. I'm a part of their life. But as a grandparent, there are some unique challenges that I have been feeling in my own life, especially as my grandkids have started to get a little older. The oldest one is now a teenager, and a couple others are getting close. And as that is happening, I am feeling some changes, some shifting, and a bit of stress in that relationship. I don't know that that's the way it has to be. And my guest today agrees. Mark Gregston has been working with teens and families for 45 years. Over 30 years ago, he and his wife started Heartlight Ministries, a residential center for troubled teens in northern Texas, not terribly far away from where I am here. He has written a number of books, has a radio program, and now that he is a grandparent also, like I am, especially addressing some of those changes and challenges that happen, and asking some questions such as, what can grandparents do to help their kids and their grandkids? What do we as grandparents have to offer that teens need? Often, I think, especially as children get into the teen years, you as a grandparent or even as a parent can get the impression that, I don't need you anymore. You don't have anything that I really want. Well, Mark believes that that's not true. In fact, it's not true at all. I want to share this wonderful, encouraging conversation. Here's Mark Gregston. Well, Mark Gregston, I have been looking forward to this conversation. First, just a huge welcome and thank you for being with us on the program.
Well, it's good to be with you. It really is. It is well to be with you. It's well with my soul, as your sign says.
Amen, brother.
And it's even better to be spending the afternoon with you. So that's wonderful.
We share something. We have grandkids.
Yeah.
I don't like to think of myself as that old, and technically they're step-grandkids, but I have 4 of them.
Wow.
The oldest is just turning 15. And I have noticed as the grandkids have gotten, as the years go by, and especially my oldest grandson just entering the teen years, there's a bit of angst on my part. And as a grandmother, things are shifting a bit, and I don't find it quite as easy to connect. And Mark, please tell me I'm not alone in that.
You're not alone at all. And what happens more than anything else, Carol, is that as our kids expand their social circles, what happens is they can't keep up with everybody that's in their life. And so they start to lose those people that have been significant. Now they're becoming insignificant because they're not keeping up with the times. They're not engaging the same way. They don't know how to relate. They don't listen well. They try to be another parent to the child. And I think what happens is there's just a normal attrition of a grandparent's involvement in the life of their teen grandchildren, because I go to funerals of grandparents and the only thing you hear grandkids talk about is what the grandkids and grandparents did before they were 10 years old. You don't hear about anything else. And it's usually because they start to distance themselves. And the biggest issue is that it's the grandparents who carry an amazing amount of wisdom. And if grandparents don't engage in such a way that connects with their grandchild, then all that wisdom that child needs in this culture that's somewhat contrary to what all of us believe, what's going to happen is they're going to lose that wisdom that could help them and propel them through those turbulent adolescent years.
how necessary that is. And maybe we should just back up for just a second and let me give you an opportunity to just let those who might not be familiar with you know about how many years you've been working with teens and how this
Wow.
helping teens grow through this season sanely well, it's just been
Yeah.
a big part of your heart and your life for a long time.
It has been for a long time. When Jan and I were 19, as I told you before we started recording, Jan and I got together when this Christian band came through Tulsa, Oklahoma. The Christian band was called Led Zeppelin. And so we were in the ninth grade. And so we got together and we dated all through high school, went to different colleges and came back after a year. Somebody walked up to me and said, "Would you like to lead a Young Life Club?" And Young Life is just an outreach to kids. And I said, "Well, sure, I'll be happy to do that." We started within 2 weeks. A man walked up to me and said, "I'm struggling with my son. I don't know what to do." And I said, "Well, let him come live with me." And he did. And that's where it started. He was 17, I was 19. And
Oh,
so ever since then, even after Jan and I got married a year later, we would have kids come and live with us. And this is while we were both in school at Tulsa University. I was pursuing a degree in finance with emphasis in real estate investments. And my heart just turned toward kids. And so I took a job with the church. I continued doing stuff with Young Life. We had 400 or 500 kids in a youth group. I went to a Christian sports camp in Branson, Missouri, where I was there 7 years and served on the staff with Young Life, but left that 30 some years ago and started a program called Heartlight. And we now have 60 kids that live with us. And our staff. We have a staff of 40, but we've had about 3,000 kids live with us throughout the years. And really, that's the basis of what I do, of everything that I do, speak about, talk about, write about, anything. It all has to do with what we've learned from these kids and their parents and from their grandparents as well.
yeah. I am sure that in those decades of service to kids and families, you have seen some really, really broken kids. And I
Yeah,
know as a grandparent that,
yeah,
seeing my, in my case, their stepsons and their families and whatever, raising these kids, it is not a particularly easy or friendly time for kids to grow up. Not that it has been since
yeah,
you and I have been alive, but even more so. I mean, there are big issues that kids
yeah.
are having to deal with now. And as grandparents, we see that, and your heart just it's torn. It's in
Yeah,
turmoil
yeah,
about that. So um, that
yeah. Yeah, and I think what happens is this. I mean, this thing has an amazing way of getting in the way of relationships. And what happens is that kids don't know how to communicate eyeball to eyeball like you and I communicate or other people. And so they struggle through the depth of relationships. And because of that, it's an immature generation. And I mean, the American Medical Association has increased the age of adolescence to age 27. The American Journal of Adolescent Psychiatry has increased it to age 26. And I go, it's because of the lack of relationships, because they are connecting differently. And that doesn't mean that it's wrong. I mean, our kids are on social media. They have tools to engage with one another, but they really don't connect, even though they're longing to. And so, I mean, they've been created for relationship. God created them that way, and they want that desperately. So grandparents sit back, get frustrated. You're always on that phone. And I'm going, that's not the way to pursue them. I would look at it and say, they're trying their best to connect just like they've been made. We've got to be sensible enough and strong enough and take the initiative to say, I'm going to engage with this child. And it's not by just sharing my opinion all the time. Scripture says that a fool delights in airing his opinion. Even the fool appears wise when he keeps his mouth shut. But these grandparents get in there and they go, I got to teach you everything. And I go, no, you don't. You need to share everything. You need to quit sharing your opinion and start giving perspective. I mean, everybody has an opinion. I mean, especially today. But a perspective is something that's unique to an individual, that's been gathered by their observation, their reflection, and their experience in life. And they bring that to the table that nobody else can.
yeah. I imagine that you have seen situations where the parents of these teens are almost as troubled as they are. The parents are going through their own stuff, and it's the grandparents who actually are taking more responsibility, raising that generation more. I believe I saw something that you wrote.
Yeah.
There's millions of kids now that are that the grandparents have responsibility for in some way.
Yeah, they do in some way. And some of that's just the struggle that parents go through. And the reason that they do is because grandparents are living longer. I mean, we're all living longer. And except for this past year where the life expectancy went down a bit, for the most part, we're living longer, we're healthier, we're more engaged. It's hard for me to believe that I'm 66 years old. And I used to think you turn 65 and you're dead by 68, or you're supposed to, go get an RV and, drive to Arizona and play shuffleboard the rest of your life. I'm going, are you crazy?
No way. No
we're
way.
we're still healthy. We've still got a lot of gas in the tank, and we have the opportunity. And so my comment to grandparents all the time is you have something to offer, and this generation of kids needs it desperately. And so take advantage of that. And so there's 3 million grandparents out there that are raising their kids, which would usually mean that those kids would just go someplace else and not have anybody to raise them. And so to me, it's amazing that God has given us this opportunity to live longer so we can offer a generation something that they're not getting, some from their parents, but they're not getting from their culture that they live in either, because they're not as connected.
Yeah. When you say that as grandparents, we have something that teens desperately need, articulate that a little bit more. Flesh that out.
Yeah.
Sometimes I even start getting the feeling like, oh, my grandson, he loves the money, he loves the presents, but what else do I have to give?
Wow. Yourself. You know what? You've got ears. If there's ever a generation that isn't listened to, it's kids today. I mean, and we see the result of that with anxiety and depression. The suicide rate is skyrocketing. It's a 75-year high for 15-year-old girls, and it's the second highest grouping for 15-year-old boys. I mean, nobody's listening to anybody. They don't have a relationship. Very few people spend time except to just tell them one more thing they're doing wrong, or how they need to do it better, or how they can do it different. You know what? My home is a place of rest for my grandkids. I've got grandkids that are 20 and 15 and 10 and something else. And I mean, and grandkids are a reward for not killing your own kids, but it's not the role for me to play and be another parent to them. And so when they come to my home, we're going to have fun. We're going to engage with each other. We have cell-free zones. Put up the phone, go put it somewhere else, or I'll throw it against the wall, but I'm going to make sure that I'm engaged enough that we can have conversations. And most of my conversations are doing nothing but listening to their heart, asking questions instead of giving all the answers, be in a place that will hear their heart, responding when they ask me to respond, loving on them a way that nobody else can, sharing stories of life, not lecturing, having discussions. I mean, I think there's so much we have to offer, and it's so valuable because nobody else is doing that. I mean, you ask kids and say, who listens to you? Most of them will say, nobody.
Nobody.
And so that's what we have to offer more than anything else.
I love that. Thank you. That just even blesses me personally.
Well,
You say that you have learned some things from your grandkids. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. They teach me all the time. You know what? Every kid that's lived with us, they come and live with us, 11 months, 11 to 12 months. And I don't know where everybody is spiritually, but I believe that God places people in our lives to teach us something. And so for every kid that comes to get help from us, I believe that God's placed them to give me a lesson about something. So I'm intrigued as to what I'm supposed to learn from that child. Our kids have had time to listen to us. Now it's our turn to listen to them. They've had time for us to tell them what to do and have all these things. Now it's time to start empowering them and coaching their character and engaging with them and providing things. You know what? I know that I've been to enough funerals that I look at people, they don't take one thing with them. And so, you know what? I'm not saving anything for a special day. Today's that special day. When my grandkids walk in the door, this is the most special day that we could ever have. And so, yes, I'm gonna applaud them. I'm gonna give them things. I'm gonna engage with them. I'm gonna love on them like crazy. I'm not going to correct them. We don't have many rules at my house at all. My wife and I have fun with our kid. I mean, we go to games, we go to college games now. We do everything, but I can just sit back and have fun with them, and I don't have to deal with all these rules and responsibilities.
Yeah. There's a perspective you're alluding to that I think is really helpful. Among the things I do is coach people, and I have this one young woman who's now in her 30s, who in her growing up years,
Hmm.
her parents made all the decisions for her, and she fell into a pattern where she followed their directions, and she actually, in her particular personality, liked that. But she's at the place in her life now where she is needing to make some decisions on her own, and she finds that really
Yeah.
hard, whether
Yeah.
it's for parents or grandparents. um, I love what you said, that kids don't need you just to tell them what to do, and
Right.
especially when it comes to grandparents.
Right. You know what? Yeah, I think our time to tell them what to do is ages 1 through 12. That's when we're in a teaching mode. We need to be in a training mode, which means this: I want them to be in control. I want them to become independent. I want them to make decisions. It's not, hey, I'm gonna go to Disney World. Do you want to go? It's more asking them, where do you want to go? And let me take you there. I mean,
Okay.
there's a difference in perspective that I want to meet their needs. I don't want them to meet my needs. This is a time that I get to pour into them. And when a child begins to understand that you're there to be an ally, not an enemy, then they'll be the ones that will engage with you and start asking you questions, because I want my grandkids to ask me the tough questions. Hey, Papa, did you ever smoke pot when you were in high school? Hey, Mama, did you ever have sex before you got married?
Wow,
Hey, what
yes.
did you do about a relationship here? Did you have a tough breakup somewhere? Were you ever confused? Tell me about this homosexual thing and how we're supposed to navigate that. I mean, whatever it is, whatever is facing them, I want to play a part in that and not share them just more information, because they have all the information they need right here. They've got the Library of Congress here. They
Yes.
want to hear wisdom, and they want to hear it from somebody they trust, from somebody that's engaged with them and thinks the world of them, and really embraces them in such a way that they go, my papa, my mama, whatever you're called, loves me. There's nothing you can do to make you love me more. There's nothing you can do to make me love you less, is the message that I want my grandkids to know all the time.
Isn't that the way Jesus looks at us? We can't do anything to make him love us any less or any more. And if we can
Yeah.
pass some of that on to these teens as they're growing up. You mentioned a few of the really big
Mm,
issues that kids are faced with today: gender, sexuality,
yeah.
relationships, drugs, bullying, worldview, all those kinds of things. Uh, Talk to the parent or grandparent who feels like, well, I can't be real with my kids because I messed up, and I don't want them to know that. Talk about
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
perspective on that.
You know what? Here's the thing. I think we've grown up with that mentality, but actually, we're a little bit more healthy when we start sharing the places where we have made mistakes.
Mhm.
And it may be as a grandparent that you start going to your grandkids and saying, hey, there's something I'd like to tell you, because when I'm gone, I don't want you to hear it from anybody else. Hey, I want you to know that I'm not as perfect as you think I am. Hey, I want you to know that I've made some mistakes. I want you to know that I've been fired from a job. I want you to know that I did something that I shouldn't have done. Those are all things that connect us together. It's not the fact that I'm on radio or written books or any of that stuff. That's not what attracts somebody to me. It's the fact that I can't breathe out of the left side of my nose for the way I was raised, that my wife was sexually abused for 7 years, that my son had a drinking problem, that my daughter had an eating disorder when she cheered at Baylor. it is those things that bring us together because we make it normal. And so for any grandparent that's out there, instead of trying to have a perfect home, have a home that's a place of rest where your child walks in and knows, your grandchild walks in and says, I don't have to be perfect here. And in that imperfection, there's an amazing connection. I don't like hanging out with perfect people. They drive me nuts.
Frankly, Mark, you know, your grandkids aren't going to care that you were on the radio and that you took care of 3,000 kids.
They're
You know,
not.
that's not what they're going to care about at all.
They're not. You know, the greatest thing that, you know, I hope my grandkids say this of me. He listened to us. He listened to us. And if we could just teach parents how to listen to their kids, I think we'd solve half the problems in the world. I mean, it's amazing to me that when you spend time listening to the heart of a child, that's the program that I want to be involved in. I don't want to try to drag them to my program. I want to be involved in their program. I want the word to become flesh and dwell among them in the form of a grandparent, that it comes out because of the overabundance, that which you've hidden in your heart will come out at the right time. To any grandparent, you don't have to spend all your time trying to teach them something. Your presence is teaching them something. Your involvement is teaching them something. The way you engage with them, the way you listen, the way you hold them, the way you share with them a word of comfort when they're going through a tough time. That is the gift that you have. And it's something they can get from no one else.
So you don't have to have all the answers.
Oh, no. I just have all the questions.
Yeah.
I gave up having the answers. You know what? I lighten up a little bit when we talk about the tough subjects that they're going through. I mean, you know, how they've been raised, you know, the gender issues and all that other stuff. I don't know the answers to all that. And I know this, I'm sure not going to solve that issue either. It's been around for years. Yeah. But if I can lighten up and have discussions and just learn how to love people differently, then God will use that in a mighty way with our kids, because they've got a whole life now to figure that out. And I know that I don't have it all figured out by age 66. They're not going to have it all figured out, but I want to be a part of that journey as they kind of move along and try to figure out all these tough things that they're going through in their life.
Yeah. I'm sure that the parents and grandparents who may be watching and listening to us care about their kids' relationship with God. And we've alluded to that, but let's just get real specific. What do you tell parents and grandparents who see their kids not following, or teens, grandkids, whatever, not following Jesus right now, and their heart breaks in that way? What is their role?
Yeah, you know what? I mean, that's a great question. That's a wonderful question, because I think we're all going to experience that. It's not quite happening the way that I thought it was going to happen. Yeah. Well, you know, Rick Warren wrote a book a long time ago. It's called The Purpose-Driven Life. And his first sentence in the book is, "It's not about you." Yes. And there's something about that. I don't want them to be transformed into my image. I want to help them figure out, you know, what life's going to look like for them. And I want them to know there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do to make me love you more. There's nothing you can do to make me love you less. And so whatever it is, so it's not going to be like I wanted. It's not going to be what I thought. It's going to be different. But I want to make sure in the midst of that it's about them and it's not about me. Because if I find myself getting angry that a grandchild isn't turning out the way that I want them to, then it is about me. I mean, anger is an emotional response to not getting what you want. Well, you know what? It's not about what I want. It's about what I can be to my child in the midst of things. And this is when your granddaughter or your grandson comes and says, I'm going to live with my girlfriend, I live with my boyfriend, or a granddaughter says, you know, I think I'm gay, or a grandson says, I've been smoking pot and I'm going to continue to do that. I just had an abortion. Whatever those things are, you can love your grandkids through that. You can love your kids through that. I mean, it's because if you don't, you won't be a part to share wisdom that you've learned throughout your life, because God has placed those grandkids in your life for a reason. And he's placed you in the life of your grandkids for a reason, to teach them something as well.
Well, Mark, you've raised kids, now you're raising grandkids, and you've taken care of a lot of teens. Have you ever messed up? What do you do when you mess up?
Oh, yeah, you say you're sorry. You go back and you just say you're sorry. That's it. I mean, 2 words. It's just, you just say, I messed up. I made a mistake. Even if you've made a mistake for a lifetime,
Mm.
it's always good to go back and just say, you know what? I was wrong. Those 2 words, or those three, I'm sorry. And the 3 words, I was wrong, have an amazing way of changing the world of relationships. And I mean, we're made for relationships, and families are made for relationships. If you have a discipline problem, you have a relationship problem, and
Yeah.
you got to figure out that relationship and move toward your child and let them know that you struggle. I'm struggling with what you're saying. I've struggled with what you, yeah, I don't even know what to say,
Mhm.
but I love you, I care for you, and I'll always be there for you.
Yeah. Mm. Beautiful.
So,
Beautiful. Um, you wrote a book,
yeah,
Grandparenting
yeah,
Teens.
yeah.
Let us know about that.
Well, it's a fun book. I mean, it really is. I think most parents want their parents to have this book, and the reason they do is because they want grandparents to be involved in the life of their kids, and at the same time, grandparents want it to know, how can I learn to listen differently? How can I talk? How can I remain engaged? How can I have a wonderful, we get this idea that life is over. I feel like my life has just begun.
Mhm.
I mean, and so it's saying, how do you do that? And at the same time, how do you deal with medical issues? What
Okay.
kind of legacy are you going to leave?
Okay.
What do you want to be known for? How are you going to bless your grandkids? I
Yeah.
mean, and so that's where I spend a lot of time talking about how to have that relationship, how to make sure that when you're gone, it's going to be your grandkids that remember you,
Yeah.
and that they remember you in such a way that they got a taste of the character of God
Mm.
just by your presence in their life.
Wow. Do you help grandparents know how to engage,
Oh,
how to
yeah.
cross some of these what seem like barriers?
Oh yeah, there's a ton of examples. There's a ton of stories everybody's going to relate with, and I tell stories all the time about just that our kids need that, they want that, and I give them examples and say, and here's how you do this, and how you can engage. Here's even the words that you can say to
Great.
make sure that they're responding to you in a wonderful way.
Mm. Mark, you have been on radio for a while. Tell us
Yeah,
about that because you have so much wisdom. This has been your heart for decades now, and I want to share
yeah.
that with people as well.
Well, kids have been my heart. Radio hasn't. I
Sure,
mean,
of course.
we're heard on about 1,800 stations around the country, and I never wanted to do it. I thought it was a stupid idea. It was kind of like writing books. And somebody said, you need to write a book, and I go, why? I don't even read books. I don't even, you got to be kidding me. But I really thought that I can help kids by helping parents and by
Yes.
helping grandparents. And so that's where I said, okay, let's do the radio thing. And that's been an amazement to me. Writing books has been an amazement. And so this is book number 20. And I just never thought I'd be writing books and sharing the stories of hope and encouragement that would help propel parents and grandparents to have a deeper relationship with their child. Because I think as I kind of turn colors and look a little bit different, I think what I've realized more than anything else is the relationship that you have with your kids and your grandkids are probably the most important relationships you'll ever have, and it's the opportunity for you to influence people in a way you'll never be able to influence anybody else. And so that's why it's been fun to share my heart, either that through our podcast, Parenting Today's Teens, or radio, Parenting Today's Teens, and anything about kids I want to be involved in to help parents understand them a little bit better.
Yeah. I can't remember where I heard this, but somewhere I heard you need to invest most in the few people that will be around your deathbed,
Yeah.
and kids and grandkids, that's who will be there.
Yeah, it is. I was around my mom when she died. She died 9 years ago. And it was funny to me that the last thing she said to me was, your mustache is so white. And I've
Those
always
are last
heard
words.
her last words to me. And people always say, well, it's whatever the last words are. And I go, No, it's not. No, it's not. It is a life well lived,
Yeah.
that involves your grandkids and isn't this distant person. So I don't think God's kept us around so that we can jump in an RV and drive to Arizona and play shuffleboard the rest of our lives. I believe that He's keeping us around because this generation desperately needs a voice of wisdom, a voice of encouragement, and two huge ears to listen to the heart of our teens. And so that's really why I've written the book is to really engage grandparents at a place where they're needed the most.
Mm. Well, Mark, you and your message have blessed me in my grandmotherly
Mm,
heart, and I
wow,
know it's
wow,
blessing many others. We'll make sure that the links to Heartlight, to your book, and the radio
cool.
podcast, and all of that is in the show notes for this program. It has really been an uplifting delight
Well,
to
thank you
have you
so
with
much.
us.
Thank you so much. I've enjoyed it.
Listen to your grandkids, listen to your kids. Wow, the gift of yourself. That just blessed me so much to hear that from Mark. It's not that my head didn't know that, but to just have that kind of wisdom to receive that from Mark. What a difference God has entrusted you and I to make in the lives of the young people in our families. You will find the links to Heartlight Ministries and Parenting Today's Teens Radio podcast right under this video. You can also find the link there to Mark's new book, Parenting or Grandparenting Teens, Leaving a Legacy of Hope. The encouragement, I know, will mean so much to you, like it does to me in my grandparentingness. Thank you for being part of this program. I want to let you know that Dr. Carol Ministries is a viewer, listener supported ministry. Underneath this video, you'll also see a place if God is leading you to support us financially. We would be so honored. You'll find that link there as well. And until next time, may God richly bless you.